You know, I have to say, it is hard to find a sequel that is better than the original. Like, not just like a little bit better, like 100 times better than the original. I think one of the rarest cases I could think of is Killjoy 3. Low budget horror movie. You'll probably never see it. I'll probably review it though, down the line. But it's also rare to find a prequel that is better than the original. This is the first case I've ever come across, and I've seen a bunch of shitty movies. I've seen a bunch of good movies too, and most prequels don't tend to be as good as the original, or even among the same ranks as the original, but Ouija Origin of Evil is a different case. Directed by Mike Flanagan of Oculus and Hush, and also written by Mike Flanagan and his writing partner Jeff Howard of Oculus as well, and produced by Platinum Dunes, Michael Bay, and produced by Blumhouse, Jason Blum. Ouija Origin of Evil stars Elizabeth Reeser as Alice Zander, and Elise Basso as Lena Zander, Lulu Wilson as Doris Zander, Parker Mack as Mikey, and Henry Thomas as Father Tom, featuring performances of Katie Siegel as Jenny Browning, Eve Gordon as Joan, Doug Jones as Ghoul Marcus, and Sam Anderson from Lost as Mr. Browning. Ouija Origin of Evil is a prequel to the 2014 film Ouija, which I have never seen. Like the Purge movies, where I didn't see the previous two before watching Purge Election Year, I didn't watch the original Ouija movie. That film looked like a piece of shit. And apparently it was to audiences too, considering it has a 7% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it also has, 24% audience rating? Is it a necessity to watch this film before watching this one? Not really, but if you do watch the first film before Ouija Origin of Evil, you'll probably be like me and start making nitpicks. I didn't even see the original film, but I watched a basic Cliff Notes version online, and you can too if you haven't seen the original film, if you just want to skip it. The guy's name's the Blockbuster Buster, E-Rod. I'll put a link in the description. E-Rod, the Blockbuster Buster reviews Ouija. And it's just a basic 20 minutes Cliff Notes version of the first film if you just want to skip straight to this prequel. I did it, and I had to make my mom watch it too because she wanted to see this movie so bad. And I told her, well, we can't. It's a prequel to the original film, Ouija. And she's like,
oh, that fucking piece of shit. I don't even remember what happened in that movie. God damn it.
So we watched this 20-minute thing before watching this film. And the only thing that watching the original film before this one does is basically just gives away the fates of the characters. And it kind of makes the film a little bit more tragic. What's the plot of this movie? Taking place in Los Angeles in 1967, it follows the lives of Alice Zander and her two children, Doris Zander and Lena Zander. Basically, Alice Zander is a fortune teller. She's a scam artist. Well, she doesn't consider herself a scam artist. She likes to think she's giving people closure, but all she's doing is conning them out of their money. And she receives help from her children in order to do so by putting on these acts for people who are seeking closure. So one day the mother decides to use the Ouija board involved in her acts, and then upon bringing it home, her youngest daughter, 9 years old, Doris, begins speaking to the dead, and her mother Alice decides using Doris in part of her acts to communicate with the dead and bring closure to people. But it's a horror movie, so things will go awry, as they usually tend to do. So, plot-wise with this movie, I liked it. It's a slow burn type of film. The trailer makes it look like it's nothing but scare throughout. But the movie takes its time. I want to say about halfway through, shit starts getting real. Yeah, and I do like slow burner movies. I like when a film takes its time to allow us to get attached to the characters, so we feel for them, we feel sorry for them when shit starts going down. You give me a reason for watching a movie, basically. When you give me characters that I can care about and like, you've done your job correctly. But in terms of the ending, I won't spoil till after the rating, but I don't have problems with the ending because I know what happens in the original film. But other than that, the plot's really good. Acting is really good in this movie because, again, you care about these characters and you don't want nothing to happen. Standouts would be Lulu Wilson as Doris Xander. When she feels sad, you feel sorry for her, and when she's being possessed and creeping people the fuck out, it is genuinely creepy. And special call out to Annalise Basso as her sister Lena. I thought she did a really good job playing the younger version of Lena from the original film. And yes, she is a character from the previous movie, but just a younger version of her. I have to mention about Henry Thomas playing the role of Father Tom. For those of you who don't know, Henry Thomas is Elliot from E.T. The only other thing I could remember Henry Thomas being in was Psycho 4: The Beginning, where he played a young Norman Bates. Other than that, I haven't really seen Henry Thomas in much else, but he was pretty good in this movie. I wanted his character to prevail in the movie. Not saying that he doesn't. I mean, maybe he does. I'm just putting it out there. I just wish he prevailed more than he has. Special effects. Special effects are pretty good for this movie. There's some CGI use into it, but it's not going to take you out of the movie. There's not really a whole lot of blood in the movie. There's some blood, but not gory blood. I mean, it's a PG-13 horror movie, so it's not going to be gruesome, bloody, or whatever. But special effects for, like, creepy, demonic voices. You know, CGI eyes. Creepy mouth going certain places, head turned upside down. Those effects were done pretty good. Cinematography was also a plus. I thought that was really good. Sucked me into the movie. Production design is the #1 standout part of this movie. Again, this film takes place in 1960s, 1967 Los Angeles. This film looks like it took place in the 60s, and I remember in the theater, I just kept looking over to my mom and asking her, "You people really wore this shit in the 60s? What the fuck? Who came up with these style choices and whatnot?" But that's just me, though. Another thing I got to point out about this movie, production design, again, in the 1960s, but what also worked was the editing style of this movie. See, throughout the movie, you notice in the top right corner here, you'll notice little cigarette burns at the top. If you don't know what those are, basically in old films that actually had film reels before we went digital, they would put these little cigarette burns at the top, so that would tell the projectionist, "Hey, time to change the reel." They included that in this movie, and they come and go throughout, and I kept pointing them out to my mom, and it was kind of entertaining. It was kind of entertaining to note that, to point that out. It was a nice little touch. It sucked you in more into the movie. It made you feel like you are watching a movie from the 1960s. If that wasn't enough, when the title first popped up in the beginning intro, they had the title here, and at the very bottom they had that little copyright MM for for what the millennium was or what the century was. Lighting was good. There are some dark parts throughout this whole movie, and it's not too dark like in most movies now, where you literally just are begging what the fuck is going on because it's so goddamn dark. So lighting was good in that aspect. Overall, this is a pretty good, decent movie, and it takes a lot to scare me. I mean, jump scares are fucking jump scares. They just come and go. Jump scares don't really scare me that much, but there are a few genuine scares in this movie, especially when, spoiler alert, the little possessed girl starts flying towards people. Yes, floating, flying towards people. It gets fucking scary, people. It scared me. That takes a bunch to scare me. If you scare me with a jump scare, fuck yourself, because jump scares are not that scary. They're annoying, but there are a few genuine scares in this movie, and I appreciate the movie for actually trying to scare its audience and just not jump scare you. So overall, this movie, I'm going to have to give it an 8 out of 10. That is a high rating for a horror movie, at least from my perspective. A definite 8 out of 10. Go see this movie. Give your money towards this movie. Definitely. Earlier, I said I was going to talk about the ending for this movie. Okay, so I'm going to get into the ending of this movie now, and forgive me if you didn't want to spoil, but I'm going to spoil this now. Okay, so we get to near the end of the movie, and Father Tom tells the mother and Lena, tells them, okay, your daughter is not communicating with your dead husband, or talking to people who have been in this house. Apparently, this house used to be owned by someone called the Devil's Doctor, some guy named Marcus who was in World War II. He got out somehow, I think. I'm going to be honest, I don't really remember much of the backstory for this movie because there were 8 to 9-year-old kids or 10-year-old kids running around the theater, and I'm not joking. They were running around in front of me and my mom as we're watching this movie and distracting us from the fact that there's exposition going on that we need to hear. So the explanation for exactly why is such and such happening, we couldn't hear it because 10-year-old little dipshits were running around in front of the screen in front of us. So if you're watching this, kids, fuck you. In the original movie, there are 3 characters that are now in this movie. You have the older version of Lena, played by Lynn Shay, who's in a mental hospital. You got the ghost of the mother, Alice, who is around the house and trying to protect people who live in the house from Doris. She did a fantastic job of that, considering Debbie died. And then you got Doris, who is the evil, possessed spirit. She's the villain of the first film. So these 3 characters are in this movie, in this prequel. We get to see them as they're living before shit goes real, before Doris gets possessed. Lena discovers from the ghost of her father, who, by the way, did fuck all to help his family survive. That's the thing I don't understand about these goddamn ghosts and possession movies. These ghosts can help you by sending you signs or doing stuff. This father, for example, took Lena's doll and added stitches to the doll's lips. And we thought it was Doris who did this just to fuck with her sister because she was possessed. But no, it turns out it was the ghost of their deceased father. That's a plot point in this movie, that there's a father figure who is no longer around because a drunk driver killed him in a car accident. But basically the father figure stitched this doll's mouth shut just so he could tell his daughter, Lena, the older sister, that in order to stop Doris, you have to stitch her mouth shut. Just how Doris was found, her corpse was found in the original film. So you're telling me this father can stitch this doll's mouth shut, but can't pick up a fucking pen and a piece of paper and write down,
"Yo, bitches, get the fuck out."
Or write down,
"Stitch her mouth shut."
You can't do that? You can stitch this doll's mouth shut, but you can't write on a piece of paper,
"Hey, do this."
Or,
"Get out. It's not me. It's other spirits. Do it."
That kind of pissed me off. I hate that in movies where this nice, kind of spirit comes into play and only does bare minimal in the final act because they couldn't do jack and squat. They never really develop in either of these movies either why the fuck that happens, but that's becoming a cliche now. That is becoming a cliche where a good kindred spirit comes into play in the final act to help the main hero do some shit. It's becoming a trope. Stop it. So Lena manages to get the upper hand of the possessed Doris and stitches her mouth shut and forces the ghosts/demons to exit her body. But in the process, they take Doris's soul, and she's now with her father. So now Doris is dead. So the mother, who was tied up, by the way, wakes up from being tied up, breaks her balance, and tries to attend to Doris, who is now passed. Lena tries to comfort her mother, but then Lena becomes possessed by the demons and then stabs her own mother in the gut and kills her. And the mother gets to go along with Doris and her deceased husband now because she sees him as she passes. It's a sad moment, and you feel bad, and you're like, okay, now the stage is set for the original film to take place. And then all of a sudden, just smash cuts to 2 months later, where Lena is now in a mental asylum like she was from the original film. So now we know she has spent 50 years in this insane asylum because of what happened. Now you're questioning who the fuck dragged Doris's body and put it in the crawl space, because that's where they end up finding the body 50 years later in the original film. Did Lena put it there? Does she know that's where her sister's body's at? Was she trying to dispose of the bodies? Is the film trying to make me question this, or is there something I'm not seeing here that I missed somehow? Like, what's the purpose? Because Doris is not the villain in this movie. In the original film, if you haven't seen it, the villain of the movie is the ghost of Doris Sander, and the kind of hero ghosts of the movie are Alexander, who gets killed about two-thirds of the way through, and you got the ghost of Debbie, who just comes in at the very last minute and decides to help because, you know, she's a fucking bitch. Debbie just stood back watching. Okay, that friend's dead, my boyfriend's dead, my best friend's boyfriend's now dead. Oh shit, my best friend, her sister's about to get killed. Wait, now I'll help. This film, when Doris and Alice die, it seems to imply they go off to a better place with the deceased father figure, but apparently not, considering they're still stuck in the house, and apparently in that time Doris has become more evil, or is it just... Or is the ghost of Doris being possessed by a demon? That's too fucking complex. Is the villain of this movie is Marcus? I mean, is Marcus just possessing the ghost of Doris, or what? I'm confused. It doesn't make any fucking sense. This movie ends thinking that our main characters go off on a better place after they're dead, but apparently not, or is... I don't... God damn. So the movie just ends with Lena in a mental hospital, and at the very end of the credits, like at the very end, as if it's Marvel Cinematic Universe, they show like a natural progression of Lena from her 15-year-old self all the way to how she looks in the original film, portrayed by Lynn Shay, and it just jumps to the part of the movie where she's being informed her supposed niece, the main character from the original Ouija film, has come to see her. Apparently, people who saw that scene got confused and thought it was Elise from Insidious, and thought, oh, Insidious and Ouija are going to cross over with each other. No, they're not doing that. Don't. Doris and the mother die at the end of this movie, but they go off onto a better place, but yet in the original movie they're not, because they're still stuck in the house. I'm fucking confused. I don't get it. Is that a mistake? Did the writers just skip over that because they wanted the happy ending? I don't fucking know. I do think there may be another part of this franchise. There may be a Ouija 3. It'll probably be another prequel and focus on Marcus when he comes to the house. Maybe. If there is going to be a sequel, it's going to have to follow that shitty original movie, which I don't even think anyone wants to remember. I don't even think the studios who made this movie want to fucking remember that piece of shit. So, will there be an Ouija 3? I don't know.